also need to update you on some of the happenings around the country before we get back to the EC headquarters, because the bondholders forum actually have rejected another attempt by government to rope them into the domestic debt exchange program. The government has announced that it is reopening the domestic debt exchange program, particularly for investors who did not sign up for the February exercise. The Ministry of Finance, in a statement, noted that the opportunity will also cover holders of the ESLA PLC as well as the Dachi bonds. But member of the Pensioner Bondholders Forum are actually objecting to that. James Aveji has been monitoring the exercise and comes through with this report.
Between February and June 2023, members of the Pensioner Bondholders Forum picketed the Finance Ministry demanding a total exemption from the government domestic debt exchange program. After a back and forth between the two parties, an agreement was reached. That agreement granted total exemption from the domestic debt exchange program. That agreement granted a total exemption from the domestic debt exchange program to the Pensioner Bondholders Forum. But in a statement dated 13 September 2023, the bondholders say government is attempting to rope them into another debt exchange program. They have been classified under Category B of that statement. They are expected to submit their bonds to the Finance Ministry for a new term. But at the press conference on Monday morning, members of the pensioner bondholders say they cannot be included in the new domestic debt exchange program. Dr. Edwana Nientri is convener of the group.
We have noted that Category B holders, consisting of eligible holders that are natural persons 59 years old and above, as of 1st January 2023, and are still holding eligible bonds, have been included as part of the eligible holders who are being invited to tender their holding of the eligible bonds in exchange for a package of new tranches. We find this as irregular. We believe that the inclusion of Category B holders, that is pensioners, in the invitation is irregular for the following reasons. Category B holders, that is the pensioners, who did not tender their bonds were on the 16th February 2023 exempted from the DDEP. Effectively, natural persons 59 years old and above, as of 1st January 2023, who did not tender their bonds and were subsequently exempted from the DDEP, are not part of persons who could not participate in the DDEP. Such persons, therefore, cannot be part of an invitation to give holders who could not participate in the DDEP an opportunity to tender. Our response to these statements is that natural persons 59 years old or older as of 1st January are not part of holders of eligible bonds who did not participate in the February 2023 exchange on time. They were exempted from the DDEP. They are not part of people who could not participate on time. We were exempted. We have advised that the government should not create a situation that will result in pensioners not receiving their coupons and principals on due dates.
According to Dr. Edwana Nientri, they have sent a reminder letter to the Ministry of Finance and government reminding them of the exemption they have granted to the pensioner bondholders. He says if they do not hear anything from government in the coming days or are not exempted, they will have no option than to resume their picketing.
We have already informed the whole world that anytime our coupon or principal is in arrears, the only thing we will do is to picket the ministry, as we have done. We will do that if the ministry delays in paying our coupons and principals. when the principal is due to be paid. So that is what we are going to do. We have done it, and we'll continue to do it. We don't want to go back to the picketing, and that is why we don't want government to bring any system that will get these coupons and principals delay. But if a system is created to delay the principal or the coupons, then we will picket the ministry to demand our payment.
Meanwhile, the pensioner bondholders are hopeful that the government will honor its words in the letter of exemption granted the pensioner bondholders. Reporting for Joy News from the Clocksack Auditorium here in Accra, my name is James Aveji.
So, excerpts of what transpired earlier today. So, let's give you a breakdown of this new trend or reopening of the domestic debt exchange program. Joining us now is Isaac Ovieje, data analyst here at Joy News. And Kofi, many are wondering, is this a second round, a third round, a reopening? What's the classification from the position of government?
First, I think we should go with the description given by the Finance Ministry themselves. This is a reopening of the domestic debt exchange program. But per our own analysis, this will be the third form of exchange. Remember that this is domestic debt exchange program. Right. The first exchange that was done with a participation rate of 80%, that was when we restructured about 80 billion Ghana cedis of our debt. The second round was when we called groups like, individual bondholders, groups like pension funds, cocoa bills, and also foreigners who had come to invest in our economy to come for, and then even IPPs, for instance. Remember that story? That was the second round. That was the second exchange. The third exchange now will be what the Finance Ministry is referring to as the reopening. But I would like to quote something from the IMF. They say that when you are doing a debt restructuring, remember that it comes with repercussions. So if you do it and it is not deep, you will keep on doing it over and over and over again. And the intended effects that you wanted to get, you probably will not get if you do the debt restructuring and you don't do it well. Now, per the data that we have, if you've been looking at this domestic debt exchange from the time that the finance minister did the maiden announcement, the total amount that we wanted to restructure was about 137 billion Ghana cedis.
But that figure, I recall, was revised.
Revised 3 times. The fourth revision or the third revision that we worked with was 97.7 billion Ghana cedis.
So we brought it down.
Exactly. The difference between the difference between 137 and 97 billion cedis is almost around over 30 billion Ghana cedis that we are talking about. We don't know the people that were excluded. Remember, the finance minister in their final press statement said that some people were excluded because they felt they cannot be included in the debt restructuring.
I see.
Others who were holding bonds were allowed to exchange their bonds for treasury bills. Remember, all of those things happened when we were just tackling the 97 billion cedis. And so just by doing this and just by letting these people exclude themselves, we created that huge gap of more than 30 billion cedis. And now we have to...
So inadvertently or intentionally, government is just coming back to the same point where we left off. Let's hear from Professor Lord Mensah, who's also joining the conversation this afternoon. Prof, thank you for your time. Reopening of the domestic debt exchange, some are calling it the third round of exchange. How do you see it? And it appears that Professor Lord Mensah will be joining us shortly to also share his thoughts with us. But we're coming back to this whole figure that we are looking at, 100 billion plus.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How much more do we need to meet the target?
We need a lot. We need a lot. And per the information that we have, we know what happened in Zambia, where the external creditors were not happy with the position that the government has taken in the domestic sector.
Yeah.
Zambia, when they were doing their debt restructuring, went straight to the external creditors and say, come on, can you give us a haircut and all of those things? They did not tackle their domestic debt restructuring properly. So, the external creditors were not happy because they say, if you want us to help you restructure your debt, why don't you start from the domestic space? The same thing probably happened in Ghana. you are going to restructure, external debt restructuring, which has about 13 billion euro bonds.
Why don't you start?
Exactly. Euro bonds are mostly pension funds that people gather, to give you bonds and all of those things. So if you did a restructuring and if you want this magnitude of haircut from us who are the external people, then we feel that you need to go back to the domestic space and cut more.
Okay. Let's see. Professor Lord Mensah is back with us. Prof, I was just asking the question about how you feel about this latest reopening of the domestic debt exchange program.
Yeah, so thank you very much. Good afternoon to our viewers. The debt restructuring and the way we are operationalizing it in this country, I think is unprecedented. Because we've read through, debt restructuring across the globe, and I haven't seen any debt restructuring that has gone back and forth, and that seemed to extend certain levels of uncertainty, on the investment space in the country. That is, unprecedented. Now, from where I sit, debt exchange comes with economic repercussions. In as much as it has a way of reducing, debt burdens on the government's, balance sheet, there are some, negative side to it. And so therefore, if a country is going through debt restructuring, it does not hang on it for long. That is why your calculations and everything that you are looking out for must be spot on in such a way that when you make that announcement, you don't go back and say, you are coming to do debt restructuring again. From the way things are going, it looks like we are using, the debt exchange as more or less operations, kind of economic management. And that is not done anywhere. Once you announce a debt restructuring, you're done with it once and for all, and then off you go. So for the finance minister to reopen it, more or less a recurrent kind of, debt restructuring, it will have a negative impact on our economy. And it looks like he's having his way because the investor community seem not to have alternatives for their investment. If they have an alternative for their investment, they would have punished, the government in raising, funds. That is why it has been more or less kind of negotiations back and forth. So from where I sit, the finance minister shouldn't take advantage of the situation. And then because, if you turn out to, prolong the debt restructuring and the investor loses interest in government instrument and they turn out to, sit on their monies at homes, or they turn out to find alternative use for the money, the government will find itself in trouble. Ability to raise money will be a problem. So from where I sit, they shouldn't look at it that way. What was announced has been dealt with. The Ghanaians, knows very well that they are done with debt restructuring, and as a result of that, we're not coming back to it anymore. And that should be able to help the economy. Because as we speak now, the back and forth seem to prolong the kind of uncertainty. Nobody knows whether the government will touch, the next time. So anybody that is sending his money into, government instrument tend to have, hesitation. And so the finance minister should be aware of this and then stop the back and forth.
And joining us now also is Dr. Edu Anani, who's just addressed the press briefing this afternoon. Dr. Anani, yes, I can understand this is a very busy moment for you, but going forward, are you certain that you would have another opportunity to engage government on this, knowing that the position is now officially communicated to the public? Dr. Anani, I was just asking if your way forward will be to engage the finance ministry again.
Yeah, we have sent a letter to the finance minister. We are of the view that they didn't avert their minds to the fact that we have been exempted, and therefore you couldn't invite us to any reopening activity. And I believe they will understand that. And yes, because announced that we are not part of that invitation. We are not going to submit our bonds anyway. But the implication is that if you are part of this reopening, until the reopening period is closed and a settlement date is determined for settlement, you are not going to get whatever is due you during the offer period. That is the trouble that will cause us if our name is still in the document. For tendering, we are not tendering. We are exempted, and nobody is saying you want to tender the bonds. But if your name is still inside, the meaning is that you can't receive your coupons that are due now. You can't receive your principals that are due now until the offer period is ended and settlement day has come. So if it takes now, government is saying the offer period is up to 22nd and settlement day is 29th. And the government has said it may extend the offer period. And I believe it is going to be done. The previous one were extended sometimes 3-4 times. So these will be extended. If it's extended for, let's say, about 2 months or 1 month, it means coupons that are due today and principal that is due today will not be paid until the 2 months when the opening has closed and settlement has come before you receive your money. And we can't go through that we won't allow that to happen. So what we are saying that, just take us out of it. If you didn't apply your minds to the fact, I have said it several times that this self-exemption and issue exemption is not taught in class. It's not in the textbooks. It's practical. You must understand the implication of when you say you have exempted someone. And if you still don't have that real understanding, you keep on doing these things. And we are just explaining to you that once we have been exempted, you can't invite us to, unless you lift the exemption, unless you say you are no longer exempted, so now you can come. But once you are under exemption, you have no right to access to come and tender. If you access, we won't tender. And if our name is still there, we will have problems getting our coupons that are due now and our maturity bonds that are due now until settlement day, which will not be the right thing that we should face. So that is why we are holding this press conference and writing this protest.
We've seen, the trauma and the tireless effort and the back and forth with the finance ministry when you were asking for the first exemption. Are you ready to go the full length, the full haul, just to get, another issue out of the way, which has got to do with the reopening of the DDEP?
Yes, we are saying that the reopening, we don't have a problem. Government can reopen and invite people who are supposed to be invited. We are saying, period, that we are not part of the group that you can invite. Simple. Once exempted, you can't invite us. You can't invite us, so we should not be part. So don't use the reopening to delay payments. You put it in the reopening, you are just using it to delay payments to us. Yeah. Now, I've explained that in the market, when the offer is open, it's not closed, you can't determine people who are bringing in their bonds and people who are not bringing in their bonds. You must wait until the offer period is ended and settlement day has come before you will know people who submitted their bonds or tendered their bonds and people who did not.
All right.
That is where you can now pay people who did not tender their bonds. So if you put our names there, you are going to tell us to wait. And if this offer period or whatever is the opening takes 2 months, it means pensioners are going to wait 2 months before they get what is due them. This is what we say is not right. So don't put our name inside the document.
Dr. Entry, thank you for spending some time with us. Professor Lot Mensah, the way forward, what do you think about the proposition?
I think it's not a good thing. I mean, as far as the Ghanaian economy is concerned, it has more or less extended the uncertainty, in the space of government investment. And if we don't take care, the long-term effect of government raising money to operationalize its budget, I mean, will turn up to be a problem. So the way forward, I think they should desist from this, I mean, recurrent, debt exchange announcement.
Okay, and any message for the finance ministry?
Yeah, from where I sit, I think debt exchange is done once and for all, and it's not something that you can, operationalize it every now and then and say you are going for another debt restructuring. From where I sit, I think they should, come out and be clear. I mean, when we're going to end this debt exchange and what we intend to accumulate, what we intend to achieve from that. So far, we had objective for going into this exercise. We've not even gotten, the part of the objectives achieved yet. We're talking about, bringing interest rate down in the short term. You see short-term interest rate, going up, but we're still having this uncertainty clouding out. That is why government instrument keeps on attracting higher rate, because of some of these uncertainties. And so it's not something that we should joke with.
We'll see how all of that will play out. Professor Lobmensa, thank you for spending some time with us this afternoon. Isaac, the options left for government as we go on this short break.
Well, probably the only option is that individual bondholders and pension, bondholders want their monies. And as we speak from, fact sheets, I can say that today, as we speak, 114.9 million worth of bonds will be maturing today. 62 million on 25th, 284.9 million on 28th. So as we speak, September alone is housing close to 463 million Ghana cedis of bonds that will mature just this month. And people want their monies to be paid. And just like they said, debt restructuring is done once and for all. The IMF says it's like performing a surgery. You don't perform a surgery and say, oh, I forgot this in it, so let me cut and go and take it back. You do it once and for all. And once you do it and don't get the effect, that is it. I mean,
some say maybe when you leave a razor in there, you go back for it.
That is why when you're doing it,
you need to be careful.
Well. Yeah, absolutely.
Critical point there. Isaac Ofieje, thank you for joining us. You're watching The Pulse here on the Joy News channel. When we get back, we're still paying attention to the Electoral Commission's press briefing, which will be coming up shortly. Plus, the United Nations General Assembly is underway in New York. Will get you there, get you updates, and why it matters to you here in Africa. Please stay.